All right, imagine this. You wake up one morning, it's January 15, 2026, and the entire global map is being redrawn right in front of you. Well, that's pretty much the scenario we're diving into today. We're talking about a huge shift in geopolitics and finance that is changing, well, everything. So let's break down what's happening and what it really means.
So let's just jump right in with a question that gets to the heart of it all. Is your portfolio ready for oil to hit $150 a barrel again? Because while the headlines might be focused elsewhere, there are some powerful forces at play pushing us right back towards that number, a number many of us thought was in the rearview mirror. And this isn't just about the price at the pump. We're talking about shockwaves that could rock the entire global economy.
So what's behind this? What's causing this potential crisis? Well, we've basically entered a whole new era of risk, and it's fundamentally different from what we've seen before. This isn't about small, localized conflicts anymore. Nope. We're talking about events with massive global consequences, and it's all happening on multiple fronts at the exact same time.
Yeah, the events we're witnessing, they're not just a blip on the radar. They represent a real structural break from the world we've known for the last few decades. It's like all the old economic playbooks are being thrown out the window, and now everyone, from governments to investors, is scrambling to figure out the new rules of the game, and they've got to do it fast.
And sitting at the absolute center of all this is a concept called the dual front crisis. Now, what makes this so unusual and frankly so dangerous is that you've got two major geopolitical crises blowing up at the same time in totally different parts of the world. That stretches resources, it stretches attention, and it is incredibly destabilizing.
And you can see it right here, laid out plain as day. On one side in the Americas, you have military intervention in Venezuela, which, just happens to be home to the world's largest oil reserves. Then on the other side of the planet, you've got this escalating rhetoric with Iran, the country that basically controls the Strait of Hormuz. That's that tiny little waterway that acts as the world's most critical energy choke point. You literally couldn't design a more perfect storm for the global oil market.
So what was the spark? What lit the match? As you can see, it was a rapid-fire 1-2 punch. First, the capture of Venezuelan leadership, which instantly put diplomatic relations with the BRICS plus nations, we're talking Brazil, Russia, India, China, and the others, into a deep freeze. At the exact same time, a sharp warning from the US to Iran set the Middle East on fire. Two totally separate sparks leading to one big synchronized global crisis.
Okay, so this brings us to a really critical point. This isn't just some high-level political chess match. This is a direct threat to the very lifeblood of the global economy. We are talking about the weaponization of energy itself.
And this is the part that really matters. This is no longer a simple game of supply and demand. We are now looking at the very real possibility that these critical shipping routes, places like the Strait of Hormuz, could be used as a political weapon to just choke off the flow of energy to the rest of the world.
This threat, it's triggered a massive shift in thinking. A whole new driver for the market called sovereignty of supply. And this is a complete 180-degree turn from decades of globalization. The priority isn't about getting the cheapest stuff anymore, it's about making absolutely sure your nation has control over its own essential resources, no matter what it costs.
And this chart, it shows you exactly what I'm talking about. The old model, globalism at any cost, is just getting dwarfed by this new priority, sovereignty of supply. And this is forcing a massive rethink for every single country and every major company about where they get everything, from their energy to their microchips.
So the big question is, how are nations supposed to adapt to this new reality? Well, they're building something called the sovereign supply chain. And this isn't just some minor adjustment, we're talking about an entirely new economic model, one that's designed to work in a world of high-stakes geopolitical risk. Let's dig into what that actually looks like.
I mean, this quote from the source material just says it all, doesn't it? The era of globalism at any cost is over. This isn't some temporary blip. This signals the definitive end of a 40-year economic era. The world is literally reorganizing itself as we speak.
So what does this new model actually look like? Well, it's built on three main pillars. First up is energy autonomy. That means nations want to control their own power source. They don't want to rely on risky global shipping. Second, defense tech. Think satellites, autonomous systems, a huge focus there. And third, resilient infrastructure. We're talking about things like local data centers and power grids that can't be easily shut off by someone else.
And this is the real game changer. If you're watching the markets, the companies that are building these pillars, they're not just considered tech stocks or energy stocks anymore.
They've become vital national security assets, and that's exactly why you're seeing so much money, what the source calls a security premium, just pouring into these specific sectors.
Okay, so all of this brings us to our final section. How do we navigate this crazy new world? With the old rulebook thrown out, how do we understand value? How do we redraw the map? Well, the source material gives us a really fascinating new framework for thinking about all this.
It's called the PPP framework, and it's a super powerful way to see this new landscape. First P is for politics. It is now the #1 driver of market value, period. The second P is for performance. A company's performance isn't just about being the biggest anymore. It's about being independent from all this global friction. And the third P is for protectionism. It's not a bad word anymore. It's now an intentional government-backed strategy to build up domestic champions.
So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all mean? Look, the obvious move might seem to be just betting on high oil prices, but the deeper, smarter strategy is to find the enablers of independence. These are the companies providing the core technology, whether it's for energy, for defense, for computing, that allows a nation to build its own fortress in this new world.
And that brings us to our final thought. This massive tectonic shift towards sovereign supply chains, it's creating a whole new set of winners, new markets, new national champions. But it also forces us to ask a really critical question for the future. As the most powerful nations in the world race to secure their own lifelines, who and what gets left behind?